Welcome to the Leather Journey. I'm Dex. And a little shameless plug for my other channel, Whips in the Dungeon. If you're interested at all in any type of whip or dungeon play, impact play, you might check out that channel. We haven't done anything on knives in a while, so we're going to do a two-part segment specifically on knives I use for daily use and also that transition into dungeon play, or at least the dungeon play I enjoy. And then we're also going to do a segment on fixed blade knives that I use in the dungeon. But we'll start with traditional folders, and we'll just go through them. These small folders here came as a set. It's kind of a little bit of duplication of effort, but I'll go over these quickly. These are my daily carry knives, and out of these three, I actually prefer to carry this one, and I'll explain why in just a minute. But they're very similar. They're all Schrade knives with the old-timer trademark, and this particular one is just a little small two-blade knife. And it has a pen knife, and I guess the distinguishing feature is they both pivot out of the same bolster, and because they pivot out of the same bolster and the thicker part of the blade is up close to that bolster, this knife is a little bit thicker for carry as compared to this knife. This knife is a little bit smaller, not much, but just a little bit shorter, and it also has two blades, a pen knife. But the characteristic of it is it pivots off of opposing bolsters, and because of that and the thickness of the blade, this knife is just a little bit narrower, not quite as chunky as the other knife. You can see that one's a little thicker and the other one's a little thinner. And both of these traditional folders I would use for daily carry, but I actually prefer the single blade knife that came out of the set, because usually when I'm using a knife like this that I'm just carrying around in my pocket, it's for opening mail, maybe opening a box from Amazon, whatnot, on a daily basis, just my general use, and I don't need the pen knife when I'm opening a box or whatnot. So I prefer this one because it's a little bit slimmer. It weighs a little less. It's easier to carry in my pocket. But because it's my daily carry knife, it's always in my left pocket. So when I'm in the dungeon and I need to trim a cracker or need to do something with a fall or another piece of leather, if I don't have another knife handy, this one's always available because it's always in my pocket. It's my daily carry knife. So out of those three, this is my preference. So moving to some of these other knives and how I use them or don't use them. This particular knife is a Granddaddy Barlow, and it kind of had sentimental value. It's made by Imperial, which is an Irish company. I don't know if you can make out the engraving, but it's a single blade Barlow called a Granddaddy Barlow because it's a little bit bigger. Most Barlows are about, I don't know, 2.5 inch blade, about like that. This one's a little bit longer, a little bit oversized to carry in a pocket, fits nicely in a back pocket. In this belt sheath that Bucket Waterhole Leather made me, it actually fits nicely in this slot. But I mainly got this for sentimental value because I carried a Barlow when I was a young fellow, as a teenager. I carried a Barlow from Ireland, and this reminded me of that knife that I used to carry around when I was in high school. So I didn't realize when I got this off eBay, I got it for a great price. I didn't realize when I got it off eBay, it was part of a lot. So when the Barlow showed up, I had two other knives that I wasn't expecting that were in the box. And that comes to this knife I'm going to show you. This was in the box and it was broken. The knife was in good condition, the mechanism, everything was in good condition, but it was missing a bolster, and part of the bone was cracked on one side, and the bone on the other side had a piece that was completely missing. So I sent this off to be refurbished. Well, why would you refurbish a Schrade that's not overly expensive, not really worth a whole lot? Well, because in the dungeon, when you open that knife, it's a switchblade, and the mechanism works very nicely. When you open that knife and someone you're playing with is blindfolded, that puts chills down their spine. Interesting sound effect. The sound effect of opening a switchblade and doing sensation play with it or knife play with it is interesting. It has a little lever, so you can switch that lever and it'll open to the half open position, and then you can manually open it. Of course, you get that click when you open it all the way, but when it's in full switchblade mode, it opens quite nicely. So I thought it was worth refurbishing, worth every penny I got, because I consider I got it for free because I was buying the Barlow, and this came as a surprise. And now it's a really nice knife for knife play in the dungeon, because if for no other reason, the sound effects that this makes when it opens up. Okay, so the other knife I enjoy and I do as a daily carry quite often is this Case Junior Sod Buster, and it's just a really nice knife. If you are looking for a knife that has a drop point blade for dungeon play, this is a nice sized little knife with a drop point blade, and I enjoy it quite often. So the rest of my dungeon, my traditional carriers in the dungeon kind of fall into two categories. I don't like two-sided blades, and I like a single edge blade because it's easier to control in dungeon play. And I like a blade that's not, for erotic play, I like a blade that's not overly large. So this Kershaw onion skin blade, the blade is maybe 1.25 inches in length. It's very small, extremely sharp for getting into small nooks and crannies. So for erotic play, I really enjoy a knife that's about this size. The other knife there's two other knives that I use for erotic play. This Gerber, it's about the same size, has a locking blade, so it locks in place. It might be just a tiny bit longer, but it's about 1.25 inches blade. Single edge blade, very sharp. You can actually shave someone with this, but it's really nice for getting into nooks and crannies in small areas of the body that wouldn't be accessible if you were using a larger blade. Okay, I've got this belt sheath that I like to carry on my belt in the dungeon, and it has two knives in it, and both kind of characterize the type of knife play I like to do in the dungeon when I'm using a folding blade. This Kershaw is a short blade. Again, it's probably about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, and that's really nice for getting into real tight areas in the body, nooks and crannies, and things for erotic play. If I'm doing a shaving scene, I actually don't like to shave with a straight edge. I prefer to shave with a knife edge, but that knife edge, they're knives that are designed to look like a straight edge. So this Kershaw fits that category. It looks like a straight edge. It folds, and it's actually a knife, but it's a knife with a blade that kind of resembles a straight edge. Very sharp, and fits nicely in this carrying case. Its sister cousin that I also use for shaving is this buck. The buck comes with a clip to put it on the belt, so I don't carry it in this sheath. But it's similar. These are very similar in shape and function. Let me go back to the Kershaw and open it up so we can compare directly. The Kershaw blade might be just slightly longer, but not by a whole lot. But very similar, very sharp, both capable of doing a shaving if you've negotiated and you're doing a shaving scene. Okay, but very enjoyable to play with and fun. A lot of fun to do that type of knife play. So we come to the last two knives in my folder collection, and this one again was one of those extra knives that I got when I bought the Barlow, and I got a surprise in my eBay package. This was a Sheffield knife, and it's just a kind of a traditional locking blade folder with a nail nick, probably a 2-inch or 2 1/4 inch blade, and snaps open, so that's a nice sound. It's a nice size to carry. Its kissing cousin, I say that because it has a similar look and design, the Buck 110, which actually is considered a hunting knife, but a folder. It makes a nice sound when you snap it open. If you take it to the half open position and then finish the opening with a snap of the wrist, and now can't do it, there we go. That's a really nice sound. But you can see, if you compare the Sheffield and the Buck 110, they're, similar look, similar design. This one's a little smaller, could be carried in the pocket. This one's a little too bulky to carry in the pocket. And, it comes with a nice sheath, leather sheath that Buck provides to go on the belt. When I was in the Navy in the 70s, at least in that decade, this was a very popular knife amongst sailors and bosun mates, especially the bosun mates on board a ship. It seemed like all of them were carrying a Buck 110 on their belt, to do work around the ship, to cut a line or, cut a strap, do that kind of work. It was a heavy knife. It had a nice thick blade. You're not going to have to worry about breaking that blade. But for dungeon play, it's great for a mind fuck because you can pull this knife out, you can click it open, it locks in place, it's secure, not going anywhere until you undo the lock, fold it back up, and resheath it on your belt. But even if you never pull it out, just carrying that around on your belt in the dungeon when you're getting ready for or doing a scene is a statement in itself. The Buck 110 is a walking statement. So to recap, most of my dungeon play falls into two categories in my particular preferences. I like to do erotic play with short single blade knives that are very sharp. The Kershaw onion skin and the Gerber as an example. I also like to do shaving scenes where I actually pull out the shaving cream and do some hair removal. And to do that, I use a knife that resembles a straight edge, but it's actually a folding knife. The rest of these are daily carry, but my daily carry knife, this little single-edged old-timer Schrade, ends up in the dungeon every single time I'm in the dungeon because it's in my pocket. And if I haven't been carrying one of the other knives and I need a knife to do, some work, this little knife is a workhorse. As always, thanks for watching the leather journey, and tell me down in the comments if you made it this far into this video. Then take the time to comment and tell me what kind of folding knives you like for not only daily carry, but if you use them and incorporate them into dungeon play. How do you use your knife in dungeon play? Please share that. As always, thanks for watching.